Kitco News special coverage of the Rule Symposium Natural Resource Investing is brought to you by G Mining Ventures.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Kitco. On location at the Rule Symposium here in beautiful Boca Raton, Florida. I'm Jeremy Safran. Well, gold has rallied over 25% this year, fueled, of course, by geopolitical shocks, rising tariffs, and we got that renewed pressure on the Fed to cut rates. And at the same time, there's also a new push underway to rebuild the financial infrastructure. This time around, world-class assets, real-world assets, backed by not fiat, but by vaulting gold. One NASDAQ-listed firm just secured up to $1.1 billion in financing and says it will denominate its balance sheet in bullion and launching a gold-backed digital instruments. Now, they're not alone. Tether now holds about 80 tons of gold, roughly $8 billion, making it one of the world's largest private holders outside of central banks, according to reports. Now, its gold-backed token, XAUT, has reached $819 million in issuance, but faces regulatory pressure as the global stablecoin rules tighten. So obviously, we got to find out what this means for investors. Is the future of finance collateralized by real assets, or is this just another layer of risk dressed in metal? We're now joined by Henry McPhie, the CEO of Big Sig Technologies. Did I say it right? Biosig Technologies, and also the co-founder of StreamX, for a full breakdown. Nice to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for making the time.
No, thank you.
We were sitting here at the show when this announcement went out. Obviously quite large here. Let's start with the facts. You announced a definitive agreement for up to $1.1 billion in growth capital. Has any gold been purchased and vaulted yet, or are we still in pre-execution here?
So we haven't purchased just yet. We will be very shortly, as soon as we get everything closed and finalize all of that. Our goal is, like you said, to denominate our balance sheet in gold.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be purchasing essentially as much as possible.
Still, Cantor leading, big institution, a big quality asset in terms of the deal includes $100 million in convertible debentures and a $1 billion equity line. Is the financing kind of contingent on, shareholder votes, SEC approval? What's the actual timeline to deploy it here?
Yeah, so timeline, we're looking probably around 2 months to be able to finalize everything. We recently went through the merger with Biosig to be listed. That was a very quick process, actually, and very clean. We had a very good structure team with us to be able to do that. We're very confident in being able to finalize all that very shortly and then move very quickly.
So coming to market really quickly. Yeah. One of the things that's gaining so much attention here is that you said you'll denominate the balance sheet in bullion, obviously, rather than fiat. How much gold will back that? How will the vaulting, the auditing, describe this, break it down for us.
So we're going to be working with a tier 1 bullion bank in the US for the vaulting and physical allocated gold. We're not going to be doing unallocated, it'll be physical, it'll be, we'll know each gold bar that we own. We're going to using, over 90% of the proceeds raised now to actually purchase that bullion, with the remaining going towards, the growth capital for the development of our real world asset platform. And, what's unique is to be able to denominate our balance sheet in gold. We think it is a much better alternative to, fiat currency or, these Bitcoin strategies that we've seen coming out recently.
So tell me how it works with the shareholders in kind of, having your balance sheet outside of the fiat system.
I think it's been met very positively. I think this is something that we've been discussing for a little bit internally. And, now that we're the first mover to, ever do this, you're seeing a lot of Bitcoin companies, other crypto companies coming out and saying, hey, we're going to denominate our balance sheet in Ethereum or Bitcoin. But gold itself is a asset that's 11 times larger than Bitcoin. Yeah. And is a proven store of value. Yeah,
been around for 5,000 years too. Yes. Right? We've got a little bit to look at. It's also up 25% year to date. We're seeing this renewed central bank buying, as you can tell. Are you going to be buying as the central banks buy? Is that kind of the role here?
We're going to be buying as much and as frequent as possible. We're not necessarily going to be on any fixed schedule, but we are going to continue to buy, and we are going to allocate as much as possible towards buying gold. I think it offers us a unique opportunity because of the size. We have very low fees to be able to do all this, and we're in a very good spot to be able to do it.
Okay, well, we talked a little bit about central banks. Obviously, we have these tariff shocks, and then there's questions about the U.S. fiscal policy right now. There's a lot of unanswered questions, as you know. Why is now the right time to kind of build an alternative gold-backed asset?
So I think there's a couple of reasons. And, one of our advisors and large shareholders is a gentleman, Frank Justra, who I'm sure you know. Yeah. He's a very large supporter of gold.
He'll be on our show now.
Exactly. And so, with that, I think by being able to do this, we're at a time where there's not just the opportunity for the upside in gold, but there's also the downside protection risk of, Frank talks about a lot, the devaluing of the US dollar, the different macroeconomic trends that might be happening. As a company that has our balance sheet denominated in an asset, in now a currency with Basel III, that is, very low risk with a high potential upside, I think that just gives us even more of a boost on top of the tokenization and technology platform that we already have developed.
Talk to me about Tether. I mean, we heard about this story. They hold $8 billion in physical gold in a Switzerland vault. Also claims its gold token is credible alternative to fiat. What differentiates the model here? And I mean, is it really about monetary hedging, or are we talking more of a tech play?
Yeah, no. So I think something that we are looking to do that is a little bit different than the other gold tokens that are out there, because there is a market for them. Right. It's around between Pax and Tether. There's around 1.7, 1.8 billion in gold tokens available. We think that we can eclipse that in 2 years. And so the reason we can do that is because we have our balance sheet that we can use to seed capital into the market. And so the big thing with tokenization is you can tokenize anything. But if you don't have the liquidity to be able to create a market for it, it's sort of worthless. And so by us being able to use our balance sheet to create not just gold-backed tokens, but structured products around gold, we think that we have a probability to essentially create gold plus returns through different avenues that we're able to execute on with these structured products. And tokenization allows us to do it very quickly and very efficiently.
Real time.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk about that, I guess what you're building into tech here, because you're building on Solana. Why Solana over Ethereum, which makes more sense? And with the institutions too.
Yeah, no. So, I've been in the crypto industry for a long time. I've built on Ethereum. I've built on Solana, different companies. And Solana itself, I think it's a blockchain that is already being widely adopted. It has the lowest transaction fees. It has the fastest transaction times. And with that, for an asset that we're creating that we want to have high throughput and high operational efficiency, Solana makes the most sense for us. And there might be a time where we have Ethereum assets as well. There's no reason we can't go cross-chain. But to start with Solana, it puts us in the best spot.
And you like that, I guess, what they're built on. I mean, in terms of, if you think about a gold bug, we don't want to be tracked. We want, is this a secure alternative?
It is. The blockchain itself is one of the most secure public ledgers out there. Yeah. Arguably more secure than traditional financial systems. And there's always the thought, it's like, oh, blockchain can be hacked. Blockchain cannot be hacked. Your wallet might be hacked, but the measures that we put in place, there's no non-custodial wallets, there's no hot wallets. It's a fully centralized platform with Coinbase security. Yeah. And so, the highest level of security in the industry. And that's a paramount thing for us. Okay,
well said. You framed this more than just a token issuance. Obviously, we've been talking about that gold-backed Treasury as well, and it's kind of an interesting model. I mean, I don't know if anyone's even doing it. Yeah. What does this do for company operations? When you start thinking about that's your Treasury, what's the cost of capital? What's the stability here?
So the cost of capital is very low. That is something that really sets us apart. The stability is, I think, the most stable. Yeah. When you look at gold, it has its ups and downs, but if you look at it from a long time frame, it is the stablest store of value in the world. Right. And with that, by us being able to have our balance sheet denominated, we're able to participate in the gold market very heavily, and two, we're able to keep our cost of capital low because of the size that we are going to have into it. And so, our vaulting fees, our costs to potentially purchase other assets is going to be some of the lowest.
It's interesting, just thinking about kind of how you're going to do it, because you can't pay, GA costs, and you still need a little bit of fiat. So how does that work in terms of just company operations?
So we'll have a portion set aside for company operations. The good thing with us, though, is our burn, our G&A costs are very low. We're a very lean technology company. We have a team of 10x engineers and executives. And so in terms of the G&A side, that is a very low burn for us, while still being able to complete and do everything that we want to do.
Yeah, people will be happy to hear that, because it's obviously GA costs are, in this sector can be interesting. Yeah. I've been talking to some people, and there's some buzz that this could disrupt how miners actually raise money in the future. I mean, they could shift away from royalties and dilutive equity. Yep. Are you planning to offer, a gold-backed capital to miners, or is this strictly just about the balance sheet?
No, we 100% are. And so, we think this is going to be a disruptor because our cost of capital is low and because we have capital to deploy into gold-like assets. We think that we have the ability to essentially disrupt the current system, how it's done. The industry hasn't really seen a lot of innovation in financing for the last 60 years since royalties came out. There's different sorts of instruments like, gold-like notes and stuff like that have been seeing a little bit of light recently. Yeah. But the way that we have the ability to do it, I think it's going to be a major shift. And as we scale and grow as a company, it's definitely going to be seen by the industry.
I wonder, if it could eventually offer almost a benchmark for collateral. When you think about the pubcos, it's an interesting sector. So is this just another version, or is it kind of synthetic? Do you think this will play out?
I think it will. I think this is something, and something that I like to say is, tokenization itself is very simple. It's being rapidly adopted by institutions, and there's infrastructure being built by institutions to be able to accept and trade tokenized assets. We've had conversations with some very large institutions, and they're looking to offer tokenized assets to their clients simply because it provides a much more efficient market and a much quicker way to use your capital. And so in 3 to 5 years, I don't think there's going to be any difference in investing in a tokenized asset than there is in investing in a traditional security like an ETF or a stock.
Interesting. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because obviously on the regulation side, we have the US and the EU pushing stablecoin rules, that are trying to prohibit the gold backing. So what's the follow-up? How do you prepare for that?
So I think, there's different nations and different regulatory landscapes all across the world. The EU and the US are two parts of that, but I think in the US especially, we're seeing a lot more pro-positive tokenized assets, pro-crypto, blockchain. Right. And with that, the SEC just announced, Paul Atkins, they're having their whole tokenization initiative where they want to essentially bring tokenization and the US to be the capital of that. We're obviously a US listed company. We have our licenses in Canada, exempt market dealer, to be able to do everything fully compliantly. That has been really important for us since the start. And so, we aim to be on top of all regulations, and we will do everything in a compliant manner. And I think the industry is really shifting towards that.
Yeah, you brought it up a little bit there, but let's talk about custody because it's central to trust. Tether now runs its own vault to reduce fees, it appears. Will you partner with a third-party bullion bank, or are you going to kind of want to run your own infrastructure here?
No, so I think for us it's important to have a tier one infrastructure provider for the custody services. And so like I said, we're going to be working with a tier one bullion bank out of New York, potentially across the world as well for different vaulting locations. But that'll all be fully above board, fully audited. All of the gold, you will know exactly where it is, and the tokens will be backed by exactly what they say. Okay,
man, it's a heck of a story. Talk about deliverables. What can investors watch for next? When are you going to see these issuances? Maybe a live ledger?
Yeah, no. So I think over the next couple months, as we continue to get the capital in and continue to scale the company, we're very excited to start doing our initial issuances. The platform itself is fully developed. We have the ability to move very quickly on that. In the next couple of months, there's going to be a lot more news coming out on sort of when that's going to be happening. We're working on a lot in the background, and it's going to be moving very quickly once it sort of hits.
You're here at the Real Symposium. We've been talking to a lot of investors. You're here with actual miners in this space too. People open to this idea? It seems like tokenization seems to be more of a theme this year than last. Are we close? Is it, the gold bugs are starting to come this way? What are your thoughts?
I think we're definitely seeing a shift. It might take a little bit longer for the traditional gold bugs to really accept something digital where, they like to see hard assets. But there's also a whole new generation coming. And those people, they don't want to go to Costco and buy a piece of gold. They don't want to go to the pawn shop, whatever it is, to get their asset. They want to be able to click on their phone and be, okay, wow, I just bought some gold in 2 seconds. Yeah. And that is the generation that's coming. It's part of my generation. And we are really going to be the ones to cater to that because gold is always an asset that people want to own. We just want to make it easier for them.
Yeah. People are waking up to it. You saw the investors. They're starting to figure it out. Yep. All right, Henry McPhie is the CEO of BioSig Technologies and the co-founder of StreamX, which is on the New York Stock Exchange, right?
NASDAQ, BSGM.
All right. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for watching Kitco. I'm Jeremy Saffel. For all of us here, we're going to be all week long talking to some of these experts. We're going to get some great insights. So stay tuned, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Kitco News special coverage of the Rule Symposium Natural Resource Investing is brought to you by G Mining Ventures.